If you're involved in software projects, you might find the next 4 minutes very useful to you. See, they're pretty difficult, and we're going to tell you about how AI can help through the use of hyperautomation of requirements analysis. Hyperautomation is orders of magnitude increase in productivity. And through a tool that we've invented, you'll see how that can be done in the next 4 minutes. My name's Colin Hammond. I'm the founder of ScopeMaster, and having spent many years in the IT industry, we've seen some common patterns that keep getting repeated and cause a great deal of problems and distress. Delays due to bug fixing, poor and volatile requirements, inadequate appreciation of sizing, therefore poor estimates. So we set about creating a tool that would automate at least one of these, and that was the sizing exercise. That was 3 years ago, and what we've developed is a text analyzer that will look at the requirements of user stories, focusing on the who and the what of the user story. And without any pre-training, you just import your user stories, press the button, and it will deal with pretty much any variation of English and 3 other languages as well. So what does it look like? You take your requirements, usually as a CSV file from a spreadsheet or exported from any other requirements repository tool, import them into ScopeMaster, press the green button, and sit back and watch the analysis engine do its thing. It will go through them, analyzing the requirements text, detecting functional intent, looking for specific requirements type problems, assigning a quality score, performing functional sizing, which is extremely useful for estimation and planning, generate insightful diagrams, and even traceable test scenarios so that you can validate that the requirements have been correctly delivered after the event. A great time saver. So let's take a little look a bit closer. What does it look like? When you're analyzing an individual story, or when the tool analyzes an individual story, it takes the text, it analyzes every single word and all the relationships between the words in order to pull out the functional intent of the story, identifies users and objects, and breaks that down into discrete data movements, which constitute the foundations of an ISO standard functional size. So this story is 10 cosmic function points. Knowing that is really useful from a planning point of view. And it does all that pretty quickly. So in a matter of a few seconds, it will analyze each story and cross-reference it with every other story. And that's within about 15% of a manual count. If you're familiar with older generation of functional sizing techniques, such as the if-bug method, it does that too, slightly less accurately. And that's down to the methodology, but it's an equivalent standard to the cosmic function points. Now, just so that you know what it looks like, you just pull the stories in, click the green button, and sit back and watch it do its thing. It goes through story by story, analyzing every word of the story, then cross-referencing that with every other story in many different ways, and checking against a number of rules as well. It detects the functional size. It finds stories, missing stories. It finds duplicated stories, complex stories, and many other tests that it performs. And it does all this work in just a matter of seconds. Extremely productive. So in 25 seconds, $8,000 worth of work. Now, doing good requirements work, even in the Agile context, is extremely important. How do we know this? Well, based on 100,000 user stories we've analyzed, we've detected that each story, each word of a user story generates about 125 coding words or tokens. And so you see this amplification of work, and therefore a mistake in your user story becomes amplified. Finding defects in user stories is at the moment a really time-consuming process. With ScopeMaster, we can cut that down dramatically, and you'll see orders of magnitude increase in productivity. And it's finding genuine defects, not just false positives. And pretty quickly too. So, and one of the biggest challenges with early estimation is missing stories, or the absence of a complete set of requirements up front. Now, normally upfront requirements is considered to be a waterfall activity, but when it can be done so quickly with a tool such as ScopeMaster, there's really no excuse not to do a lot of this work up front. And that really improves your estimates And it's truly amazing, the certainty that it brings you so early in your project. Now, you'll all be familiar with various tools for storing user stories. In this case, we see Jira, set of stories in Jira, and it's really easy to get quite lost in the words here. Scope Master, knowing the functionality that's described in each story, is able to bring all this together and generate really insightful diagrams so that stimulate critical thinking. And for those of you who are inclined to look at things visually, this is extremely helpful. You can slice it and dice it in different ways, cut it down by user, and then use this to validate that you have the right requirements against that user's profile in the first place. So it really does accelerate QA work and helps you get to a better set of requirements up front. So in all, this is hyperautomation, orders of magnitude increase in productivity that will reduce levels of rework through automated requirements, QA, sizing, diagrams, and test scenario generation. And it all happens before you spend a moment on coding. It's truly amazing. This is the power of artificial intelligence applied to software requirements analysis. So if this piques your interest, pop along to our website and book a demonstration, and we'll be happy to show you more. Thanks.